Welcome to Pin TV's coverage of the 2018 New England Pro League Championship match. We are here at Lucky Strike Lanes in Mansfield, Connecticut to bring you the action between Rigney's 3 and Lucky Strike Lanes. We join the action in the second frame here. Really anyone's match at this point. Noteworthy that Gary Santora began the match with a strike and a spare for Lucky Strike Lanes. Lucky Strike with an early 8-pin advantage. We saw Rigney's 3 defeat the Valak Vipers at Holiday Lanes in the previous match, semifinal match. It was quite close there. Valak won the first game by 2 pins. Rigney came back, blew them out the second game to tie it 1-1. Rigney won the third match by only 3 pins. Valak came back in match number 4, game number 4, won by 14. And then Rigney pulled it out in game 5 to take the match 3-2 and advance today's championship match. Lucky Strike Lanes got here. We got a bye to the finals by being the number 1 team in the league this year. They set numerous records for the league, including 36 points through a 28-12 game record and an 8-2 total record. That's for 36 points. Team has bowled 10 matches of 4 games each. Each game was worth 1 point, as well as the total for each match being worth a point as well. Their high set for the year was 1853. They won 1 match total by 288 pins. And on the season, they were 870 pins ahead in their 10 matches. 1706 on average for these guys. Really a tremendous season for them. They certainly deserve to get the bye and be playing in this year's championship match. Rosters for each team. Rigney's 3, you know them already from last match. We got Will Rigney, Andy Fairlett, and Leo Montero. Each team can name up to 5 bowlers in their match day roster. This season, they only named those 3, so that's what they're working with today. On the other side, you've got Lucky Strike Lanes. They have a 5 bowler roster that they've stacked up through this year. Kyle Shaw, Josh Lowell, Dave Dupuis, Gary Santora, and John Blaze. Shaw, Santora, and Dupuis start today. Blaze is also on today's match day roster, so we could see him at some point today. In the previous match, Valak Vipers named Mike Labrie in their match day roster. He never made it on the lanes. We'll see if that's the case for John today, or we'll see if he sees some action. Early
good at that one by now.
20-pin lead for Lucky Strike Lanes. 21-pin lead. 3 marks for them, and only 1 so far through 8 frames. 8 boxes bowled for Rigney's 3. Dave Dupuis, that's him on the right-hand side of your screen there. Leo Montero on the left. Tough break for Leo there. What looks like a decent ball. Plea for a spare, and he picks that up. So Lucky Strike Lanes is rolling here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 marks to Rigney's 1. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about Lucky Strike Lanes and their improvement from this year. Last season, 16-17, they finished 5th of the 6 Pro League teams with 20.5 points. So an improvement this year of 15.5 points. Pretty dramatic improvement. Also finished last season negative 623 pins in their matches. This year plus 870. So over 1,000 pin swing overall this year. And you can see why, because you see Kyle Shaw there on the left-hand side of your screen. Open things up here in the 4th frame with a strike. They had a 16.02 average last year. This year, 17.06 for Lucky Strike Lanes. Huge improvement. They bolstered their roster this year, going out, transferring out of the team were Pat Rufo and Mark Volza. Transferring in, Gary Santora, Josh Lowell. Andy Fairlett on the right-hand lane there. He'll be going for a 2-pin spare. Gary Santora. Strike spare 9 box so far in this game. And looks like a 9-10 split for him here. Look at Lucky Strike Lanes. We also see that they have 2 bowlers in the top 5 in the Duckpin Professional Bowlers Association Bowler of the Year standings. Kyle Shaw leads the way so far in this season, while Gary Santora is in 5th place. Gary Santora was recently the Senior of the Year on the DPBA Tour. Talk about accolades for Rigney's 3 as well. We remember just a couple years ago when Will Rigney and Leo Montero were neck and neck in the Eastern Classic here at Lucky Strike Lanes. They put on quite a performance. Will ended up claiming the Eastern Classic crown, one of the most prestigious tournaments in all of duckpin bowling. Leo, give him a good run. Entertaining throughout Duckpin TV's coverage of that entire weekend. You can go back and find that on YouTube. Leo here now, the 4th frame, looking to pick up single pin spare. And he does. If I'm not mistaken, that's the first converted single pin of today's match. Dupuis, we saw him make a 3-pinner in the corner in the last frame. This time he chops through the middle one. And he'll settle for an 8. Already a 28-pin advantage for Lucky Strike Lanes here. Kyle Shaw leading off for his team. Starting the 5th frame, he's on a strike. Chop through the middle. He'll have to look to pick up a couple more for a fill. Rigney on the left. In the pocket, leaves the 3 in the corner. Kyle settles for the 9, while Will Rigney picks up the spare. 34-pin advantage for Lucky Strike Lanes. Still early though. We're not even officially halfway through the match yet. Rigney's 3 does have 3 spares now to fill. whereas Lucky Strike Lanes does not have any marks, but now they do, as Gary Santora grabs his second strike of the day. Fairlet on the left, he's filling a spare, like we said. Ooh, gets some to kick back. That's a unconventional 9-drop. Should take a moment to talk about the head-to-head results between these teams during this season. Lucky Strike had the emphatic lead in this series. Again, both teams played once at each bowling center. Lucky Strike Lanes obviously calling Lucky Strike Lanes home. Rigney's 3 calling Town Hall Lanes in Johnston, Rhode Island home. Lucky Strike Lanes had an 8-2 advantage in the series this year. 6-2 in games and 2-0 in total. A game that was played at Lucky Strike Lanes. Lucky Strike only won total by 2 pins, 16-24 to 16-22. The story playing at Rigney's 3, as we see Montero fill a spare with a strike. Rigney's 3 is really starting to heat up now, past 5 frames, all marks. As I was saying, that match at Rigney's 3, Lucky Strike won by 92 pins, 18-12 to 17-20. So on paper, this year's results a little lopsided in favor of Lucky Strike, but on the day, anything can happen. Rigney's 3 is certainly capable of taking down this Lucky Strike team. Things are getting a little tighter here. With those 5 marks in a row, Rigney's 3 is cutting the gap down to single digits, and if we're projecting out, probably going to take the lead in this 6th frame. Take a moment, we got to talk about single pin conversion percentages. All right, we've already seen a couple bowlers pick up some single pin spares. Very important part of the game. And we're seeing 2 of the New England Pro League's best spare shooters on display today in Kyle Shaw and Dave Dupuis. Making 80% and 78% of their single pins, respectively, on this year's Pro League. Very impressive numbers. Shaw picks up a spare. Rigney settles for the 10. An 11-pin advantage now for Lucky Strike Lanes. Gary Santora now going for a double. Gary had 9 doubles this year in the Pro League. Again, Andy getting some pins to fly back. It's for an 8 fill. Gary, though, looks up at his teammate Kyle Shaw. Gary thinks, oh, I've got a lot of doubles here, back-to-back strikes. I've got 9. Kyle Shaw has 18. As far as the team stats go, when it comes to doubles or back-to-back strikes, Rigney's 3, 38, Lucky Strike Lanes 35. So back to a 15-pin advantage here. Lucky Strike really, didn't take too much of a hit after the 4 marks in a row from Rigney's 3. In fact, Lucky Strike now with a 1-mark advantage. They have 1 more mark to fill. But Leo Montero going for a double. He doesn't get it. He had 8 doubles this year in the Pro League. Dupuy on the left, off the head pin, leaves 4.
Oh yeah, should take it about. We're playing again.
When we talk about average in the Pro League this year, we've got quite a treat today as Kyle Shaw, the #1 average bowler in the Pro League, 152 average, is taking part in today's match, as well as the 4th ranked average bowler, Andy Fairlett, 142 in this year's Pro League, and the 5th ranked average bowler, Will Rigney, 141.95, as well as the 6th high average bowler, Gary Santora, 140.5. Quite a treat that we've got those 4 in today's match. No real big scores yet. Nobody on pace for anything big. See Gary Santora a little off the head pin and gets it to go anyway. He'll take that one for sure. Already 3 strikes for Gary. Andy on the left, we've seen him get to kick a lot of pins around so far in this match, but can't get that 7 pin to go down. Just misses. Dupuy goes through for 5 on the right. Leo Montero on the left. Feeling a spare. He also chops. Dupuy almost picks that one off. If last year's final match was any indication of what we might expect today, we're in for quite a show. Last year, the Valak Vipers took on the Rhode Island Red Barriers in the final. First game, Valak took 478 to 400. It was quite an impressive game. Luke Robustelli threw a 190 in that first game. The next 3 games were all taken by the Red Barriers, who were the champions of the 2016-2017 New England Pro League. But all 3 of those matches, as we see Will Rigney tiptoe ballerina along the foul line. A little off balance there, but he managed to keep himself behind the line. All 3 of those games, as we see Kyle Shaw throw a strike here, right? Certainly backing up my claim that he had 18 strikes, back-to-back strikes in this year's Pro League. 83 total strikes, second only to Eric Lateska of the Holiday Lanes team, who had 85. But as I was saying, Rhode Island Red Barriers won last year's championship 3 games to 1. 3 of those games They won by 7 pins, 9 pins, and 5 pins, respectively. So if that's any indication of what we can expect today, we are in for some close matches. And that's what we want, right? Some close, exciting matches. As we see Andy Fairlett leave a split. He missed a 7 pin in the last frame. Gary Santora, he was on a strike, one of his 3 on the day.
Gary.
31 pin advantage now for Lucky Strike Lanes. They also have a 1 mark advantage at the moment. Leo Montero trying to chip into that lead in the head pin, but straight through it. Leaves 5. Pui, that's a strike. Got a nice mix there. Very nice hit on the head pin in that pocket. We're talking about strikes. Lucky Strike Lanes has distinct advantage thus far. They have 6 strikes to Rigney's 3, only having 2. And those are both through Leo Montero. Will Rigney was up there on the leaderboard in terms of strikes this season. 79 for 3rd place. Andy Fairlett, 70. Good for 5th. Leo Montero, 65. Good for 6th. Gary Santora also in the top 10 with 54 strikes. I think we're just waiting for a quick reset here, so it's be a good time to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment to wrap up this first game of the 2018 New England Pro League Championship match.
It's become the biggest problem solver I ever know, you know? He's just, okay, I want to do that, so we're just going to figure out how we're going to do it. And honestly, I don't know how we figured out how to do the duck pin, but everybody tells me it's simply amazing. He just figured it out on his own.
Mulvihill needs to beat that 163 to win this match. So that means putting a strike on this. 9 pins will tie. 8 pins or less, he's eliminated and Collins champion.
Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Mulvihill throws another great ball on the head pin, leaves a ring and 5 pin, and we have a tie.
All right, we're back. Didn't miss really much of anything. So Kyle Shaw there off the side of the head pin for 2. Rigney manages to get 8 on that first ball. Both are filling. Shaw on a strike, so this will also count towards that fill. Total of 8. Rigney was on a spare, so that 8 fill matches Shaw's fill. Still a 33 pin advantage for Lucky Strike Lanes. Rigney picks up that spare, so that'll work to chip away at the lead. Even with marks, though, right, Rigney will have that spare to fill. And up now on the right, Gary Santora has Lucky Strike Lanes' only spare to fill at the moment. Santora away. Ooh, beautiful ball there. No pins left. They're all gone, obliterated. That was on a fill, so that'll count for 20. Fairlet on the left leaves himself a split. So Lucky Strike Lane's just piling it on here, kind of making it look effortless. Nobody really standing out and shining, although Gary Santora could finish this game with scores as high as 196. So he could have quite the game. Still one frame to go at 146 plus a strike in the ninth. As we see Fairlet pick up the 10. He's at 100 in the ninth. Certainly no one shining for Rigney's 3 at the moment. 105, 100. Leo Montero going to be in the 1-teens in the ninth. Well below all their averages. Dupuis picks up a spare, Montero a strike. So kind of all square in terms of marks at the bottom of the lineup. Still a 53-pin advantage for Lucky Strike Lanes entering this final frame of Game 1. Certainly a huge hurdle to overcome for Rigney's 3. Likely won't do it. They'll certainly give it their best effort. But it looks like Game 1 is going to go to Lucky Strike Lanes, who again leads this season series 8-2. And this will give them a 9-2 advantage if you include this match. Sometimes one team just has another team's number in a given season. And it seems like Lucky Strike has the name, has the tag of Rigney's 3 this year. It is only one game, though. Right? We must remember that this is a best-of-5 series. As we saw in the semifinal match, this thing could go all 5 games very easily. The margins are pretty thin. One game could be a victory by 30, 40, 50 pins, and the next game can be as close as 2 or 3. We saw both of those numbers in the semifinal match, a 2-pin and a 3-pin differential at the end of games 1 and 3 in the semifinal. So that's a 132 for Will Rigney to start today's championship series. 134 for Kyle Shaw, both below average. Fairlet on the right drops 9. We've seen him move the pins around a little bit and leave a lot of pins on the plate, a lot of pins lying down after his first ball. Gary Santora, on the other hand, we've seen him push a lot of these pins off the plate into the pit. Thinking of his previous strike when he just obliterated them all. Nothing left on the plate, nothing left visible at all. Gary, again, leaves nothing left up there. 4-pin spare in the 10th. Fairlet settles for the 10. So that's a 110 for Andy Fairlet. Gary Santora still going here. Gets him to move around. Drops 9. So that'll give him 175. Gary certainly the MVP of this first game. 4 strikes. 4 spares. Very impressive bowling for Gary. We go to our anchor bowlers. Leo Montero on the right for Rigney's 3. Dave Dupuis on the left for Lucky Strike Lanes. Leo off the head pin, but leaves a pretty makeable 3-pinner. Dupuis chops for 2 on the left. Really does not matter at this point. 55-pin advantage for Lucky Strike Lanes. And they'll be going into game 2 with a lot of confidence after a somewhat easy victory in this first game. And that'll do it. 133 for Leo Montero, 116 for Dave Dupuis, and an even 50-pin differential in favor of Lucky Strike Lanes here in game 1. And they'll get right at it in game 2 here. We'll stick around and see how they start out.
That's cute.
Shaw drops 9. Rigney, on the other hand, leaves a bit of a split here. Shaw able to pick that one up. Rigney settles for 9. Talk about mark percentage for the season. Kyle Shaw, being the average leader, you would assume led the way, and he did. 62% of his frames contain a mark. Andy Fairley, third place this season, 54.5% of his frames he marked in. We also see Will Rigney and Gary Santora at the 50% mark or higher. Fairley off to the left. Struggling a little bit in this match today. The low score of the first match, the first game between both sides, 110. He had just 2 marks, 2 spares in that first game. And he will not be starting game 2 with a spare either. Mark percentage between these two teams pretty darn close when we look at the entire season. 53% marks for Lucky Strike Lanes, 50.5% for Rigney's 3. Over the course of the season, though, it seems like that 3%, or not even 3% difference, made a big difference, right? Lucky Strike Lanes averaging 17.06 per 4-game match. Rigney's 3 averaging 16.69 per 4-game match. So, that's a difference of 37 pins each game. They played 10 matches. So that can certainly explain some of that difference. Lucky Strike Lanes off to another quick start here, 2 consecutive spares, whereas Rigney's 3, with Montero's miss there, is going to start off with no spares. And there's another one for Lucky Strike, Dave Dupuis, converting a single pin spare. Shaw now up on the right. Ooh, good ball right there in the pocket, but leaves the 5-7. Shaw is certainly capable of making this shot. He's going to do it quite a few times this year, as Rigney comes back with a strike to get his team going in this game. And what did I say? Kyle Shaw converts the 5-7. Very, very difficult shot. Makes it look easy. Santora now up on the right, looking to follow his spare with another mark, perhaps 8. Fairlet looking to get things going here again. Only 2 marks, 2 spares in the last game. A little all over the place. No, maybe not all over the place, but certainly not the head pin. Oh, I'm sorry. Gary had 3 there. I didn't see the one in the back. That's an extremely difficult shot to make. Fairlet picks up the single, looking to get things going, looking to build a little confidence in this game, this match. His team is certainly going to need him if they are going to have any chance of claiming victory in today's championship. Dupuis looking to fill a spare. Lucky Strike started with 3 spares in the first frame. All their bowlers converted. Off to the left for 6, but somewhat makeable. 4-pin spare available for Dupuis. I'd say the same for Montero now. Neither convert. So we already have a 24-pin advantage in favor of Lucky Strike lanes after just 2 frames. Although Rigney's 3 does have 1 extra mark to fill. Looks like we gotta wait for a setup here, or a reset. So we're gonna take a quick break and we'll come back and continue action in Game 2 of today's New England Pro League Championship match.
Nick's become the biggest problem solver I ever know, you know? He's just, okay, I want to do that, so we're just going to figure out how we're going to do it. And honestly, I don't know how we figured out how to do the duck pin, but everybody tells me it's simply amazing. He just figured it out.
Mulvihill needs to beat that 163 to win this match. So that means putting a strike on this. 9 pins will tie. 8 pins or less, he's eliminated.
Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Mulvihill throws another great ball on the head pin, leaves a ringing 5-pin, and we have a tie.
All right, we're back, and we didn't miss much. Just see Will Rigney, his first ball of the 3rd frame, dropping 9, leaving just the 7-pin. Shaw gets up on the left and leaves the mirror image, leaving the 10 pin. Rigney converts. Remind you that Kyle Shaw led the way this year in the Pro League with a 152.57 average. Pretty impressive. And he converts as well. He's off to a good start. 3 spares and 3 frames to begin. 23 pin advantage now for Lucky Strike lanes. Fairleigh again looking to get things going, not just in this game, but in this match. He's filling a spare on the head pin, a little heavy, leaves 2. Makeable 2-pinner here. Santora coming off that 175 in game 1. Trying to get things moving again here in game 2. Drops 9. Fairleigh converts. That's 4 marks total for him in today's match. He had back-to-back spares in the middle of game 1. Back-to-back spares here in frames 3 and 4 of 2 and 3 of game 2. Santora back on it. Single pin conversion for a spare. Haven't seen a ton of single pin spare opportunities thus far today. Most of them coming in this match, actually. Or this game, rather. A lot of 2-pin spares we've seen bowlers shooting at. Again, that's sometimes the difference you see in the bowling centers. Some bowling centers are apt to give up more single pin opportunities. Some are more apt to leave you with 2-pin spare opportunities. Some houses are a little tougher. Some pins give away the strikes a little easier. I think a lot of people would say that Lucky Strike is a pretty fair house. Right? You get what you deserve. You don't get anything extra. It's not overly cruel, but just what a lot of us call fair. So we see Leo Montero sell for 9 as Dupuis gets 10 in the 3rd frame. Kyle Shaw keeps things rolling. Spare, 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 strike now in the 4th. Rigney looking to stay within touching distance. He throws it off to the left. Gary Santora with a strike here. Certainly living up to that 140.59 average he accumulated during this season. That's 3 marks in the 4th frame so far for Gary.
Flatten out.
In fact, out of the 14 frames he's completed today, 11 of those frames have contained a mark. So Gary really looking like the star of today's show, with Kyle Shaw, his own teammate, quietly saying, hey, I've got 4 marks to start this game. I'm on a strike. Let's see what I can do. And Fairleigh settles for 9 there. Was able to fill his spare with 8. Positive there, but Not getting any closer to Santora, the bowler he's matched up against on the lineup card. Dupuis in that pocket, leaves the 7. Very good ball. Montero off to the left here. Struggling a little bit this game. Missed a single pin spare opportunity in the first. And has not marked as of yet. Despite having 2 strikes and 3 spares in the first game, we might add. Dupuis gets 10. Montero 8. And we're looking at a 27 pin advantage for Lucky Strike lanes.
All right.
That's how you guys won the first.
Nice 25 on. Hey, just went from 20 down to 60 up.
There's a little joking around here. John Blaze is entering the score. Remember, he's on the Lucky Strike lanes roster, eligible to play today if called upon. He had accidentally put in 6-0 into 1 ball for Leo Montero rather than 6 and then a 0. Score has been corrected. So Leo Montero does have 36 through 4 frames. Ooh, Will Rigney tries to give that one a ride. Shaw converts, so he's perfect in the duck pin sense through 5 frames. Has all marks, spare, 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 strike, spare. Again, nobody ever bowled a 300 in duck pin bowling. 279 is the highest score on record. Fairlit up now. Back-to-back spares in frames 2 and 3, but was off the mark in frame 4. Comes back with a strike here. That's the first of today's match. Took him 15 frames, but finally does get a strike. A good looking one at that. No pins left in sight. Santora drops 8. He was on a strike. So despite that strike from Fairlet, Lucky Strike Lane still looking at a lead in the low 40s. Santora converts, so he keeps pace with Fairlet, kind of trying to fend off that strike. This matchup between Leo Montero and Dave Dupuis is a pretty solid one in the sense that Dupuis averaged 133.5 this season, whereas Montero averaged 133.3.
Outside, but curving it.
So a nice even matchup at the bottom of the lineup card. Dupuis converts for 10. So that's a 47 pin lead now for Lucky Strike Lanes through 5 frames. Like I said earlier, seems like Lucky Strike Lanes has the number of Rigney's 3 on the season. regular season, 8-2 in favor of Lucky Strike Lanes. Include the last game, and it's 9-2, and that's a pretty significant advantage.
He was in the right spot. All right, well, let's shoot it again. Oh!
Ooh, Rigney almost converts that tough spare, but does not. Shaw going for number 6 in a row and chops through the head pin. Santora having a good game himself. 4 marks in 5 frames. Filling a spare. I'd say that's a fill. All right, strike for Santora. Certainly looking like the MVP of today's match. 175 in game 1. He's got 76 through 5 frames, and he's got a strike in the 6th. Fairlet just 4 on the first ball. Tries to mix him around. Gets 3 more. That's filling a strike.
I can't figure out what I'm doing up there. It's like
Settles for 8. And that means Lucky Strike Lanes leads by 59 pins. In the semifinal match, we saw Rigney's 3 win game 2 by somewhere in the 80s. At the rate we're going here, Lucky Strike might beat them this time by even more. Certainly nothing's out of the realm of possibility, especially when we're talking about bowlers the caliber of Rigney, Fairley, and Montero. But they've left themselves quite the mountain to climb up. Not just in this game, but in this match, because you project out. And if you say they lose this game, they're down 2-0 in a best-of-5 game series. That means they need to win all 3 of the following games. And we talk about Lucky Strike Lanes this year. They win 70% of their games. 28-12 this year in the individual games played. You got to think if you make this into a 3-game match, Lucky Strike's bound to win one of those based on the percentages. Bound to win 2, really, if we're talking about them keeping to their record. Rigney and Shaw both dropped 9, looking to convert single pins here. Rigney converted his last, that was in the 3rd frame, and make that 2 in a row this game. 4 in a row overall. Shaw converts. That's 3 single pin conversions in a row in this game for Shaw, and also 4 overall. Fairlet steps up, looking to catch up to his opponent, Gary Santora. He says, "There you go, Gary. There's another strike. I've got 2 this game. You've got 2, but Gary, like we said, 9 back-to-back strikes this season. Looking to make it 10, but drops only 8." Fairlet had 11 back-to-back strikes this year. He's looking to make that total even greater. Remember, we saw him in the semifinal match with a couple big doubles. Especially in that 4th game, I remember. A critical double near the end of that game to propel his team into the lead. They eventually won by 3 and then went on to win. Final match, the final game. Well, this year's final match is shaping up to lean to one side in favor of Lucky Strike Lanes. We compare that to last year's championship match, in which 3 of the 4 games were decided by a total of just 21 pins. Shaw loads his spare with 8. Rigney fills his with 7. And Shaw converts. So Kyle Shaw has left just 1 open frame through 8. Very good game going here. He's on pace to get into at least the 160s, I think we can project. Gary Santora, his teammate below him here, also on a good pace. 6 out of 7 frames contain marks for Gary.
Check it out, my aisle 9. You almost missed what? I almost afraid to get out.
Drops another 9. Gary is looking terrific today, throwing an excellent ball. As a matter of fact, if we go back to last game, in the past 17 frames, he's got 14 of those with marks. So quite the pace he's putting up here. And if he can mark here, he's on a pace again for a game in excess of 160. That 1-2 punch at the top of this Lucky Strike Lanes lineup is lethal. Even with that said, we've got Will Rigney and Andy Fairlett both picking up spares in their 8th frame. So 63 pin advantage for Lucky Strike Lanes. Rigney's 3, not much opportunity to make it up because Shaw and Santora continue to mark. Montero giving it everything he's got. 2 open frames and now a strike. Trying to get his team going. That's all marks in the 8th frame for Rigney's 3. All right, so let's set the stage here for the last 2 frames. 63 pin advantage for Lucky Strike Lanes. So that means Rigney's 3 is going to have to make up around 10 pins on average each box they bowl. That's going to necessitate some doubles from this team. Shaw right there in the pocket again, leaves another 2-pinner to shoot at. Rigney covers 3, 3 more to go. Shaw almost automatic here. He's got 9 frames completed, 8 marks so far. Only 1 of those a strike, so he is all over his spares, all over them. He's on pace to be well in excess of 160. Santora also on that same pace. It's really just a clinic that Lucky Strike
what the
Lanes
hell,
has
Will?
put on this year. They set all the league records. The league's got a short history. Really impressive numbers. A high set of 1853, as we said. They beat one team this year in a set by 288 pins, plus 870 in comparison to their opponents this year. Just really huge numbers. This is kind of the story of the match. Fairlet chops for 2. Santora drops 9. Rigney's 3 just not able to get it going. Santora converts, so he's well on pace to be in excess of 160, closer to 170 or above. Remember, he already had a 175 in the first game. Santora certainly leading his team to victory here. As we see Montero convert that double. He had 8 on the season. Still doesn't look like that's going to be enough, even if Montero continued to strike as far out as he can. 65 pins is quite a lot to overcome, especially if you consider that Dave Dupuis, Gary Santora, and Kyle Shaw all converted spares in the 9th frame. So this match is just about over. It's a formality now. It's a matter of how high can the team of Shaw, Santora, and Dupuis go. Shaw drops 9 again. They hit 425 total in the first match, won by 50 pins. Shaw converts, so that's 9 marks out of 10 frames. Very impressive game for him. He's got 169 at the moment, plus whatever he can gather up on this last ball. And that's a strike, so that'll bring him to 179. And their team total up to 424. Already with 2 bowlers to go, they've nearly eclipsed their total from the first game, in which they won by 50 pins. Rigney there, tough finish, 5 box for a 117. We've got a 90 pin differential here. It's just quite astonishing how dominant Lucky Strike Lanes has been today and throughout the entire season.
Come on, Gary, try.
Santora, another good first ball. That brings him up to 162. He won't be able to catch his teammate Kyle Shaw this game, but he won't even be able to catch himself from last game. He shot that 175. Fairlet bounces things around off the head pin. He's looking at another tough spare conversion. Santora, though, that's easy as pie. 172. I'm sorry, he can eclipse his performance from last game. All he needs is 4 pins. 7 pins to catch up to his teammate Kyle Shaw. Really just some impressive numbers being put up by the Lucky Strike Lanes team. 442 already this game, with a little bit more to go. Santora. That's the place to put that one, as we say. Duckman bowling. Chops through the middle, leaves a nasty split. Doesn't have to shoot it, though, because that's his last ball of the game for 178. So we got 179 we got from Shaw. We got 178 from Santora. And that brings us to a 106 pin lead for Lucky Strike Lanes in the championship match for the Untitled Pro League. And Dave Dupuis says, let me add to that a little bit. Fills his spare with a strike. He's got that strike to fill in the 10th. This team's going to be closer to 500 than they are to 450. And that's saying something here. Their average game score this year, 426.5. And they're going to beat that by at least 50 points. And that was impressive. So Montero up there, giving it all he's got. Drops 9, converts the spare, but just 1 on the fill. He manages with that impressive finish to game 2 to get up to 128. Dupuis 111. Not his best game, but he's going to take that every day. 468 to 372 victory for Lucky Strike Lanes. A 104 pin victory. This is nothing to scoff at, folks, especially in a pro league like this, when we're talking about some of the best bowlers in this region, some of the best bowlers in the country. 104 pin difference. And a 2-0 lead in this best of 5 game series for Lucky Strike Lanes. Let's take a quick break. We'll regroup. We'll reflect on that amazing performance. And then we'll come back and catch up with game 3.
Create the biggest problem solver I ever know, you know? He's just, okay, I want to do that, so we're just going to figure out how we're going to do it. And honestly, I don't know how he figured out how to do the duck pin, but everybody tells me it's simply amazing. He just figured it out on his own.
Mulvihill needs to beat that 163 to win this match. So that means putting a strike on this. 9 pins will tie. 8 pins or less, he's eliminated and Collins champion.
Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Mulvihill throws another great ball on the head pin, leaves a ringing 5 pin, and we have a tie.
The biggest problem solver I ever know, you know? He's just, okay, I want to do that, so we're just going to figure out how we're going to do it. And honestly, I don't know how he figured out how to do the duck pin, but everybody tells me it's simply amazing. He just figured it out on his own.
Mulvihill needs to beat that 163 to win this match. So that means putting a strike on this. 9 pins will tie. 8 pins or less, he's eliminated and Collins champion.
Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Mulvihill throws another great ball on the head pin, leaves a ringing 5 pin, and we have a tie.
And we're back. Rigney's 3 says we're not going down without a fight. Despite being down 2-0 in this best of 5 game championship series in the New England Pro League Championship match. All 3 of their bowlers, 9-drop, spare conversion. So they are not giving up just yet. Want to make things interesting here and give the team of Lucky Strike Lanes a challenge, right? They're not going to walk away with this crown without having to really work for it. With that in mind, though, we do have to remember that Lucky Strike Lanes is coming off a game 1 in which they scored 425 total and won by 50 pins. And even more impressively, they're coming off a game 2 in which they scored 476 and won by an astounding 104 pins. Like we've been talking about, Rigney's 3 just can't seem to handle this Lucky Strike Lanes team for whatever reason this year. Lucky Strike with a now 10-2 point advantage if we consider this playoff match. Despite that impressive start, Will Rigney 2 fill, 6 box in his second frame. So he's going to be looking to his teammate Andy Fairlett to pick him up and propel this team into an early lead in game 3. Yeah, we've got to remember that this Rigney's 3 team already played 5 games yesterday. That entire match went the distance, all 5 games.
Can we just spot ball this thing? Oh, shoot out of the rack.
Andy Fairlett there,
I am not.
able to pick it up.
Take it.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Looks like he got it out of the gutter, and they had to just reset it and had him shoot at the pin. So looks like they've scored at a 10. While we were chatting about that, Santora dropped 9, picked up the spare. So it took 1 frame off at the beginning of this game, and now he's back at it. In game 2, 9 out of his 10 frames were a striker spare. And going all the way back to game 1, in which he had 8 marks, he is 17 for 20. Include this game, make that 18 for 22. Very, very impressive start from Gary Santora today. A 12-pin differential through 2 frames, this time in favor of Rigney's 3. Lucky Strike Lanes, though, does have a mark to fill for Gary Santora's spare in the second. Shaw drops 9 there. Much better first ball than frames 1 and 2, which is 6 and 7. Start. Will Rigney back on it. That's a strike. Putting a little pressure on Kyle Shaw. He says, make sure you keep up with me here. Kyle does.
We down 50 yet? No. 20. 20. 20. We don't look like it. That's not bad. Roll, baby. Some jelly on that roll. I'll let jelly in over.
Santora through the middle. Ooh. almost able to convert. May not have looked that close from the camera vantage point, but that was just a fraction, just a hair off of being a spare. Grabs the 9. Fairlet converted the spare. So Rigney's 3 is off to the races here. They've got 5 marks to Lucky Strike Lane's 3, and that's good for a 21.
Licorice?
No, I'm sorry. That's good for a
Pull and peel. Pull and peel. Watermelon.
4-pin lead for Lucky Strike Lanes. Rigney's 3 just not filling those spares yet. Right in the third frame, Rigney, Fairlet both have those spares to fill. This differential likely will be changing as we head through the fourth frame. So we head into the fourth. Will Rigney working on a strike. Not able to add to his total 19 doubles during this season. But he does leave a makeable 3-pin shot here. And he converts off the wall. Shaw also looking to convert, but doesn't. Chops through that 2-pinner. Leaving the door open here for Rigney's 3. This is as close a match as we've had this far into the game.
Every time you do that at home, somebody takes a shot, by the way. That's, sponsored by Jägermeister. That's how we get fun, man. At home, we're watching Dustin Life. Every time somebody shots you, they take a shot.
Fairlet looks to be on a roll now. That's 4 9-drops on the first ball in a row. 3 of those he's converted, including this one in the fourth frame. I think we were talking about Andy Fairlet today. He's made the past 5 of the 6 single pins that he's had left to shoot at, but that's all he's left himself in between this game and last game is 6 single pins. He's had some less than impressive first balls. And that, up to this point, had been his downfall. Looks like, however, that he's made an adjustment and he's back on the mark train. 3 out of 4, like we've said. This game. Montero up there fills 9. This team looks motivated and hungry. They've got 6 marks in a row between them all. Dave Dupuis, very impressive spare conversion on that mess. Rigney's 3 out to a 17-pin advantage through 4 frames. And they've got 2 more marks to fill than does Lucky Strike Lanes. Shaw, uncharacteristically off the head pin. He's got to get things going here. Just 1 mark through 4 frames. First balls have not been as impressive this game as they were last game when he dropped 9 or struck 5 times. He converts. putting a little pressure on Rigney to keep his momentum going. He does, but just barely. Gives it a little tap. Still called out a spare, no matter how it goes down. Santora also uncharacteristically off the head pin. Fifth frame. Not able to clean things up on the second ball, like Andy Fairlett was just able to do for another spare. Make that 4 for 5 in this game for him.
That's why I get mine. More than what I thought you had. May have had it.
So, through the halfway point in game 3, we've got a 33 pin advantage for Rigney's 3. It's even on marks. 2 each in the 5th frame. So the battle in this frame is going to be over who can fill these better, who can make up a little bit more than their opponents. And it's just going to be Will Rigney barely in this frame. 5 fill for Will. Oops, sorry, 5 fill for Kyle too. Thought I missed one of those pins that he knocked over there, but 5 and 5. Will 0 on the second ball. Kyle 1. Tough frame for each, but looks like Kyle is going to come out ahead, having made up a pin. You just don't want to count out this Lucky Strike Lanes team in this game yet. All right, 32 pin lead is pretty significant in any game we're talking about, but with the firepower of Kyle Shaw and Gary Santora that we saw in the last match with 179 and 178 respectively, really, if they catch fire at any moment, this could be a much closer match. Who is on fire right now, though, is Andy Fairlett. 5 frames, 4 marks. He's looking to make that 5 out of 6, and he does. Errant ball there from Santora. Doesn't look to have as much pop as he did in the first 2 games.
I know. There's always the penalty you pay for McDonald's.
So we've got now a 43 pin advantage for Rigney's 3. Montero cuts there for 2. Dave Dupuis filling a spare. Catches a strike. Got them to move around, got them to mix. And that's got to be a positive for his team here. Struggled a little this frame at the top of the lineup, but holding things down here at the bottom, Dave Dupuis. Now leading his team with 85 pins through 6 frames. Montero settles for 9, brings him to 77 through 6. Now a 32 pin differential, even on marks. So 4 frames for Lucky Strike Lanes to make up some pins and try and turn this into a sweep. Valiant effort by Shaw there, but unable to get that 7 pin to kick out. Rigney going for his 7 pin for a spare, and he converts. So again, putting a little more distance between Kyle Shaw and himself. One of these two guys, Kyle Shaw or Gary Santora, has to get things going here. Neither is performing nearly as well as they have thus far today. And with Fairlett really picking things up here and showing his quality, that is an equation for 30 or more pin differential in favor of Rigney's 3.
One more. Thank you.
Oh, just about to say that this is going to be a difficult spare for Fairlett to convert. Then he got that pin to kick out, and now he has that 2-pinner to shoot at. Much more makeable spare than the split that we originally thought he might be staring down. And he converts. Make that 6 frames, 6 spares in 7 frames. Santora gets 10. Lead is now up to 40 pins. So this is not looking to be a sweep here. Dave Dupuis, though, looking to get his broom out. That's a double for Dave. He only had 4 doubles, 4 back-to-back strikes in this season. Just a number dwarfed in comparison to Kyle Shaw's 18. Santora, a double now at a very timely moment when his team needs it most. Montero, just 7. So our differential cut to 27 pins. Just 27. Rigney and Fairlett both have spares, but we've got Dave Dupuis with a double at the bottom here. So things could look very different after this frame. We'll have to wait and see who takes advantage, who grabs the bull by the horns here. Kyle Shaw does. That's a strike following up Dupuis. That's 2 in a row for his team. Little momentum shift may be occurring here. Will Rigney unable to get all 5 he was shooting at for this spare, but that brings him to 103. Still slightly ahead of his opponent on the score sheet, Kyle Shaw, but not by much. Considering Kyle's got a strike, Will's got to be feeling a little bit of pressure right about now. Fairlett looking to steady the ship here. He's been consistent throughout this game, propelling his team to early lead and helped maintain that throughout. Continues his consistency by dropping 9. He'll be shooting the 10 pin for a spare. Gary Santora opposite him, shooting the 7-10 on what looked like a pretty good ball. Gary's luck in this match has turned just a bit. 175 in game 1, 178 in game 2. And now he's on pace to get just over 100 in this game. Certainly not what we were expecting from him after that stellar first part of the match. Fairlet, though, talk about stellar. That's now 7 out of 8 spares. No strikes yet for Fairlet in this game. All spares. So here's the big one. We got Leo Montero on the bottom. Grabs a strike. That's important for him. But here's the big one. Dave Dupuis on a double. So impact this game in a dramatic way, and he does. That's now a triple for Dave Dupuis, and that cuts the lead from somewhere around 40 to just 20 pins for Rigney's 3. This is quite a match, folks. Lucky Strike Lanes looking to get out the brooms. They want to sweep. Right, 3 games to nothing in the best of 5 series. They lead 2-0 currently. Rigney's 3 trying to fend them off. At least that's what it feels like right now. Off to an early lead and now just trying to hold on. Kyle Shaw here. Looks like he's just not getting that wrist flick and that follow through off his fingers in this game. Drops 7, but he's still filling on a strike. He's got to look across at Will Rigney and see that mess that Will left and say, mine might be a little easier to make, but I've got to at least get 2 of these to add to my strike and try and chip away at the lead.
Didn't Stacy hit it for a big one once?
Both tried to convert and both missed. Shaw picks up the 10. He's at 108. Rigney adds 1 more, brings him up to 112. Now just an 11-pin differential. And this is big because this is the foundation frame. This is the 9th frame. Neither bowler going into the final 10th frame with a mark to fill. Right, so all square in that respect. Santora looking to make up a little bit. His opponent has been crushing him this game, just like he crushed those 10 pins into the pit. It's a big strike for Santora. Puts a little pressure on Fairlet, who's been really holding his team up this game. Never say die attitude. This is one of the first balls we've seen from him not in that pocket. Even though on that scoreboard it says Rigney's 3 has a 18-pin advantage, we look down at the bottom. Dave Dupuis still filling that triple. They've got Gary Santora filling a strike. On the other side, just Leo Montero fill a strike. That's it. So this game is, in all practical terms, a lot closer than it looks at the moment. This will be the big one, though. Dave Dupuis on a triple can bring his team to almost level with this first ball. And he does. 9-pin fill on the triple. And that will bring things to just about level here. Oh, I'm sorry. It's still an 8-pin. It's now an 8-pin advantage for Lucky Strike Lanes. But you take away Leo's 8 that he got, and we're exactly even. Dupuis misses. Won't be happy with that, but we can certainly, if we're Lucky Strike Lanes, be very happy with that first ball because we're now back in the match. Sorry, I think I may have misspoken about the score a little bit. Forgotten that Leo Montero was also on a strike, so that first 8 that he threw doubled. So it is not an even match. Lucky Strike Lane still has 7 pins to make up in this last frame. Gary Santora on a strike, so one might assume that he can make up those 7 pins or 8 pins. So virtually an even match here. Who's got it in the 10th frame? Quite a nail biter here. Rigney's 3 looking to stay alive. Will Rigney shooting the 10? Misses, leaving a huge opportunity here for Kyle Shaw. He converts. Kyle says, Gary, you don't need to make up those 8 pins. I'll be able to do it myself here, and then you can add to our lead as we see Will Rigney convert the 10 for 122. Kyle Shaw at 118, but he's got this one last ball to go. If he gets 8, we're officially tied. He gets 9, so that means Lucky Strike Lanes 1 pin advantage. They were down by nearly 50 at one point this match. And now, when it matters, at the end of the game, up 1. Fairlett is going to need to show us something here. He hopes to keep his team alive. Did what he's done most of this game. Drops 8. He's dropped 8 or 9, almost every box. 7 spares of 9. Santora gets 8. And 1 pin fall at the last second there. Gets 8, and that's important for his strike. And
Not you.
Fairlett did not convert his 2 pin. Santora does. What a shot. Santora 175, 178 in his first 2 games. Has struggled through this game. But that strike in the 9th certainly was critical to his team's comeback here.
In the same frame. Yep.
Gets 7 more. Montero gets up there. Drops 7, 5, 7, 10 he'll be shooting at. And that means Lucky Strike Lanes, your 2017-2018 New England Pro League champions. Moment of this game certainly has to be Dave Dupuy's triple in the 6th, 7th, and 8th, and subsequent 9 fill on the end of it. Like we said, Lucky Strike down nearly 50 pins and able to claw their way back. One huge factor. On the other hand, though, looking at the other team, Rigney's 3, no marks in the last 6 frames. So, in addition to Dave Dupuy bringing things even with his triple and 9 fill, the marks that Shaw, Santora, and Dupuy scored in the 10th frame secured their victory. So, Dupuy, that brings him to 179. Really impressive game from him. Really just an incredible all-around performance from Lucky Strike Lanes throughout the entire season and in this match. So that's it here from Lucky Strike Lanes in Mansfield, Connecticut. And that's it for the New England Pro League this season. Congratulations to Lucky Strike Lanes, Kyle Shaw, Josh Lowell, Dave Dupuis, Gary Santor, and John Blaze on their championship.
I got my money.